You're in Egypt,
Yes.
and then what next? You enroll at Azhar,
Al-Azhar. Yes.
and then you said you were there for 9 years. So what does that study look like for you? What's it like when you first get into the classroom? What are the classes like?
Okay. So yes, look, we went to the first day just to go, and I think, why we're not going to class? It's okay. You have to do some lot of admin work first. Yes, you've been accepted. You've got what's called Minha Azhariya. You know, the scholarship, everything. But because somebody takes us to the school and the teacher asks you, "Where's your to say that you approved?" And like, anyway, so we do it the next day, right? And we only go the first time at 3, and our first class are from 3 to 6, and we go into something called dirasat khasa, which means special studies. Well, we use the school in Egypt, and we come in, and the board is, there's a blackboard, but it's but broken, and there are some papers lying around. And I look at students in the class, and there's students from all over the world, of course, and I feel very much out because I just don't understand the Arabic, and the people and the teachers, they are clearly educated, but they speak Arabic. So what to do now?
From the very beginning,
From
everything is in Arabic.
everything in Arabic. Um, but notwithstanding the class, the desk are
Is it
very
Fusa Amir?
no, it's Fusha.
Okay.
They speak Fusha. But the board, because this school is also used as, it's a primary school for Egyptians. It's an Azhari primary school, you know, but the board is, and so aesthetically it's not too nice, but we soon learned to know that you came here for knowledge.
You said that there were people from all around the world.
Oh, yes.
So it's
Indonesia. Okay, they later would come people from the former Soviet republics, but Indonesia, Africa, Albania. I mean, like, you know, they come more, but all over. So primarily Asia, all over Philippines, and then Africa. Not yet so many from the Americas, but there are 1 or 2 American students, and then Europe, of course. Yugoslavia students always came from the former Yugoslavia, even under communist rule, because of the understanding that Jamal Abdel Nasser had with Marshal Tito. You know, also because Yugoslavia was not under the Warsaw Pact; it wasn't under the influence of the Soviet Union. So students all over.
so
and
very ethnically diverse.
very ethnically diverse, and you know, you learn to meet all these Muslims, and it's so wonderful. Turkey, see how people speak. And the one thing that you realize why you have to learn Arabic, because I was saying, but can't these guys speak English? So somebody says, well, if they have to speak English, then they have to learn Thailandese, or learn Hausa. Can you imagine what will happen? So, okay, you know, and maybe it's like implicit, but there's almost this thing that because we speak English, so we expect everybody. No, you know, there are just so many languages. So you came here to learn Arabic, so get on with it, you know. And look, it's a good program. It's just really the way they're teaching. You know, if they could maybe have used pictures, for example, if they told us the story, for example, Arnab, you know, the rabbit. Now we asked the teacher, what is a rabbit? And he says, Al Arnab Yakul Jazar. So asking now, what is Jazar? You know, it's not helpful. At least he had a Bugs Bunny there or something like that, or brought a carrot or anything. But soon we came to learn and understand that, you know, that look, you are here to learn Arabic, and that's what we did. And as soon as you got a whole, you know, grip of the system, you realize that these teachers were really qualified and really caring. Yes, they did 3-4 jobs. They, you know, it's
Why is that? Why is it the case that, you know, these teachers at what's often considered one of the most esteemed and prominent Muslim universities in history are needing to do 3 or 4 jobs?
the economic situation, you know, of just surviving Egypt, the modern state. I mean, I recall at one stage I used to get 90 pounds, Egyptian pounds. So it's not English pounds, right? A month. And some of the teachers earned 80 pounds a month, you know, and it was like, if they used to ask, you used to often feel shy, you know, because you're a student, you come from somewhere else in the world, you get like 90 pounds and I earn 80 pounds a month. And so you find that they had to do, so they used to work in the Azhar, what is called مجمع البحوث الإسلامية, which the Azhar administrated, but it also did research and everything. All Azhar buildings. So you work there as clerks in the morning, doing clerical work, you know. And then afternoon they would come and teach, or some of them would teach at schools, and then some of them would go and do private classes. So, for example, I soon realized that we could ask some of these teachers to give us private lessons, at least, because, as I said in the beginning, it is difficult, you know, just Arabic and fa'al and maf'ul, and you don't speak Arabic, so you ask some of these teachers, and we'd pay them, for example, you know, whatever it was £5 or £10 for a lesson, things. But that was also a way to supplement and to their salary and stuff like that. So yes, they often doing a lot of work, but I must say that when they are in class, they really do a good job. And they love what they're doing, and they care for us. Students, they see us almost a type of paternalism. Always, they are very caring. But just just be a Muslim, just remain into Islam because we want you to remain and take Islam. So we can do everything. Yeah, the class doesn't always look too nice around us aesthetically, but that one of the teachers used to write, and the student was one student would say to him, "Yeah, Ustaz, uktub kois, ana jadid." Ustaz, write slowly. I'm new. And those other just anyway. So those type of things. Yeah.
So, how many years were you just focusing on Arabic?
So this year, Dirasat Khasa, like it is special studies. It could have been structured better, but nevertheless. So I then also, the first day I decided not to go home. So I arrived at the end of October in Egypt. So by May, June, everything stops. It's hot, and so I have the choice going home. For the first time, I said, no, I'm going to learn Arabic. So I get a private teacher, and the whole holidays, 6 hours a day just learning Arabic.
So can I ask, is it based on ability, or is it based on these are the structured years, you need to complete them before you can move on to more advanced studies?
I think it's a bit of both. You need to work hard, because I think the system was not too good. If I'm to give a critic.
Just to clarify the question, if you had arrived with a certain level of Arabic, would you have had to do the Dirasa
No.
Khasa? Okay.
Well, officially, yes, you would have had to do. And this is, so what they had in Egypt is for students who had schools or institutions in their country that al-Azhar recognized. These students could go straight into university. But that is just the problem, because often those students didn't know Arabic properly. So then they go, and those students, for example, some from West Africa, some from Asia would come who knew Arabic very well, but because Al-Azhar did not recognize the system, they had to do the Rasat Khasa. So you'd in any case have to do it, right?
So it's a regulatory thing. Right. Does Azhar validate the previous studies or not?
Exactly. Okay. But if you came like often, like say some from Turkey, some from Malaysia, etc., and then you could see our level because they're going to university, but then you realize it's not. The Arabic is more challenging than what you did at home. So so you had to do the Ras, but that was 1 year, and technically you didn't stay 1 year. If we came in October, because to then from there go into what is called the Ma'ahid al-Azhariya, which is like high school, say secondary. You have to the exam was once a year. It was in October. So therefore I stayed a whole year in Dirasat Khasa. So if you came around say May or just April, then you'd be technically only 2 months in the Ras Khasa and you apply for Imtihan Qabul. So it was just, so then that is what I did. Then in October, I did Imtihan Qabul and they placed me into first year Thanawiya, the high school.
So before we get into, what you specialized in, which I believe was a BA in Islamic law, in the Sharia, in Kuliya Sharia, okay. When you got to Azhar, did anyone know about the situation in South Africa? Because you said it was kind of multi-ethnic, people from many different backgrounds. Did anyone know about the system of apartheid? Was that something that people were familiar with?
Well, I think people were, because, lots of changes in NKs taking place in 89. But if you just said, I'm from South Africa, Egyptians would ask you, where on the map? Next to Thailand or something like that, Yeah. And two names we would just throw. Nelson Mandela and Ahmad Didat. So if he says, I'm from Ahmad Didat's country, Nelson Mandela's country, then people would know South Africa. I remember meeting an old man one day and he said, Muhammad Mandela. I said, yes, Muhammad Mandela. He says, well, Muslim. Because Egyptians are very merry people. You can, But of course, when you speak about South Africa, what apartheid people knew, because, 1919, the Mandela is released, his world news, Mandela visits Egypt, of course. But there's one thing that I meet Turkish students very surprised. It wasn't speaking about Mandela. They speak about Imam Abdullah Harun, who was killed in prison, and Rahmatullah alayhi, Shahid Imam Abdullah Harun, who is killed is an imam of a masjid, and is killed in prison in 1969. And somehow Turkish students knew about him because somebody made a play, and nobody else knew about him. But in Turkey, of all, he is known. And so often the Turkish students ask me, Imam Abdullah Harun, I say, yes, it's a very pleasant and nice surprise that you
Can I
know
ask
that
why? Why do I mean I don't know who Imam Abdullah Harun is outside of what you've told me recently, but I don't think this is a household name that many people will be familiar with. They should be, but why do Turkish students know about him?
some, as I understood from some Turkish students, somebody wrote a play. Somehow, Imam Abdullah Harun is the first Muslim. In fact, when he was killed in prison, is the first nun who is spoken at St. Paul's Cathedral because he worked with the anti-apartheid movement. I think there's Right Reverend Collins, somebody, and when he's killed in prison, there's an obituary, of course, a memorial for him, and he's the first non-Muslim at the St. Paul's Cathedral.
First Muslim.
First Muslim, that's as I heard. It could be, who's spoken about because he's an India-apartheid figure, and because he worked with British Christians, for example, to ensure that, in fact, he comes here after Hajj in 1960. He's killed in 69. I think it's 1968 or 67 that he does Hajj, and part of his Hajj take him to Egypt because he wanted to take to speak the Egyptian government for young Muslim boys to come and study in Egypt. That's at al-Azhar, but also for them to get some form of military training as part of the armed struggle. But he also
Against apartheid.
Against apartheid, of course, clearly against apartheid. But he also works with Christian groups to ensure that they will who are giving money and assistance, financial assistance, to South African those who are incarcerated in prison, exile movement. So he plays that role. He's a very open figure. So he works with everybody, even works with liberal so-called white groups. Like, for example, he works with a group called the Black Sesh, which is a group of so-called white women, liberal white women who are against apartheid, very liberal. But Abdullah Harun, his point is, let us about the struggle. And I think here, could have been and some play is made and somehow it landed up in Turkey. I can't tell you the story as to exactly how, but I just do know that Turkish knew him very well.
We'll come back to the issue of apartheid and Muslims in South Africa. Let's wrap up the conversation about Azhar though. Yes. So now, you've done the Dirasa Khasa, you've done the Thanawiyya.
Yeah, right.
And now you move on to
what is called the Kuliya, right? The university. So Jamia now, because now for the first time, like we're going to the Jamia because of the changes that take place in the early 20th century. So I enroll into Sharia wal Qanun. So it is Sharia, but Sharia is split into two. You have Sharia al-Islam, Sharia al-Islamiyya only, which is, your only tradition, like fiqh, usul fiqh. Sharia wal Qanun also, fiqh and usul fiqh are the majors, but you also do, let me call it international law or modern law. So you do now, for example, modern Egyptian criminal law, penal code, you do maritime law and everything. That's why the one that I enrolled in is 5 years, that faculty, compared to Sharia Islam and all the other faculties that are 4 years. So I enroll into, but the same thing that we do, what is shared with Sharia is fiqh, usul al-fiqh, and fiqh al-muqaran. Sharia would still do like Nahu and Sarf. You don't do this in Sharia wal Qanun. They do a little bit of tafsir, the ayatul ahkam, or what is called fiqh sunnah. And fiqh sunnah is not the book of Sayyid Sabiq, but fiqh sunnah as in the sunnah that the fiqh that we derive from all the ahadith, etc. Yeah. So so I take Sharia wal Qanun, and yeah.
So that's really interesting in terms of there seems to be an amalgamation.
Yes.
Of the classical rulings that the madhabs, but also looking at contemporary law regarding, as you said, what international law is. So when people come out with this degree, would they be able to go and practice as lawyers?
Yes, certainly Egyptian students could. As a non-Egyptian, non-Arab, I would not have been allowed to do that in Egypt. But when I go back home to South Africa, and we have what is called the South African Qualifications Authority, they do, and it is found to be equivalent of what was then called a BProc. It's no longer function. So if I had arrived a few years earlier, I could then have applied to be a lawyer in South Africa. But because I'm not Egyptian, I'm not Arab, so I can't practice in Egypt. But so Egyptian students, live in Egypt, they then can become lawyers and then go up like Egyptian students who study at the other Egyptian universities. I perhaps just want to say that the Sharia al-Qanun starts in 1954, so it's in Azhar, and one of its first students is a person who's known to a very important figure in the triple IT movement, International Islamic Institute of International Islamic Thought, Dr. Muhammad Taha al-Alqani, Iraqi,
Yep.
and he is one of the first students who study in Sharia al-Qanun. He's a figure in triple IT, I think probably would relate to the Islamic Foundation,
Sure.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So he's one of those first students, when it begins 1954 to study in this institution. So I studied there, alhamdulillah, for that 5 years. And as I said, our focus is law, fiqh, usul fiqh, but we also, one of the other things we study is al-ahwal al-shakhsiyah, what is called al-ahwal al-shakhsiyah, Muslim personal law, but we also study personal law for non-Muslims in Egypt, for whether the Orthodox, the Catholics, the Protestants, and even for Jews, for a while when Jews were in. So we study all that in Egypt, and of course, comparative fiqh.
So what was that like for you when you first you've entered the Jamia now? Is it similar in terms of similar types of classrooms, what to make? Because again, when people are thinking about Azhar, maybe they've got a certain understanding or preconception of what that looks like, and what that experience was like for you. So what was that like, that transition? Was it just a continuation of what you had experienced previously, or was it a shift?
So I was never to university in South Africa, but nevertheless, there are desks, so we don't sit on the floor at al-Azhar. So there's a mudarraj or a lecture theater, and we sit, and but these long desks, so it's not like, so I couldn't, in my mind, of course, I couldn't think about a South African university because I never went to a South African university, and I learned later it's a bit more comfortable there, but it was quite comfortable. There are desks, and you have this big mudarraj or this lecture wall theater. So it could take about, say, up to 500 students, and so we sit
When
as
do, sorry, so when do classes usually start?
8 in the morning. So we start from 8, and the last class is till about 2, right? So that, and generally in Egypt, that by 2 things stop. Even the government agencies, government places, they stop. So you go anytime, and depends, of course, when your lecture is. So it's not the whole day technically. Let's say, unlike Darul Ulum, you have, so you can go. You have a lecture at 8 till, say, till 8:30, or 9:30, and then maybe again at 12. So in that sense, it works more like university. There's a blackboard, but I can't recall the teacher ever using the blackboard. He was just sitting there and reading and discussing with us.
I should say that the students, the Darul students, are going to be very upset hearing this. They worked them very hard. You guys had it easy. 8 till 2's.
We had some teachers, if you're late, would lock the door, not let you come in again. At university, though, unlike the Mahad, where the so-called foreigners were the majority, I went to Mahad where there were no Egyptians. In fact, very few Arab students. I recall maybe one or two one Algerian, but really from the Arab world. There were some of these Mahad. We went to Mahad al-Ba'uth. There was one called Mahad al-Baramoni. It was another area in Cairo where there was mixed with foreigners and Egyptians. But I'm happy I didn't go there, because at those ones they spoke Amiya, and at our ones where they're just foreigners, the teachers were really good, just Fusha. And when we came to university, some teachers, now Egyptians are the majority, because university, sort of class of 700, in our one class, like 600 or at least 650 would be Egyptians. And so Egyptian students would ask the teacher, for example, to speak Amiya. And there was this teacher, I'll recall, he always used to say, I refuse to give up my Arabic. And he'd speak for 2-3 hours just in Fusha. There were other teachers who just, so yes, so it's always in Fusha, mostly in Fusha, but yeah, this is how the lessons are given. Yeah.
All right. Final question regarding Azhar before we move on to what comes after. So, in terms of, and we spoke about this a little bit previously, in terms of the mode of tuition, you said you covered texts, but it wasn't in terms of the actual text cover to cover. So it was mainly summaries of text. Absolutely. And maybe excerpts.
And excerpts from text. No, we didn't cover a text. We didn't read a text from cover to cover. So
and was there a set curriculum, or was it based on the teacher deciding which text you were looking at?
Yes, but what the teacher would do, he himself would, let me take fiqh text. For example, I did Shafi'i fiqh. So we do the...
Sorry, just on that point, you have to choose a particular madhab?
Yeah, in Egypt, they very strict when it comes to fiqh. You had to follow madhab. I was telling you earlier, this one student coming to Sudan, it's like, I don't follow madhab. And they came to him, they said, you can do what you want outside. But if you're near, and they, very nicely and almost cynical, he said, we think there are four. You can choose one of them. And once you finish, then you can decide to discard. But here you have to choose one of the four. We think they are called the Shafi. They used to, this just to let you remind. No, and it's good but what I think it did, at least the aim was to tell you that you've got to study a school of thought properly. Now, as to the type of text and how they give us text, it's a different story. So I studied, for example, Minhaj in Shafi'i school in fiqh, Minhaj al-Talibin, wa Umdatul Muftin of, in the Shafi'i school. But we didn't read the text as a whole. So, but to start with, in the first year, we do Kitabul Ibadat. In the second, Kitabul Buyu'. So what the teacher then do, like you'd compile, and sorry, that was for what is called Dirasa Nasiyya, right? So the textual studies. But there was called Dirasa Mawdu'iyya, where the teacher compiles a book and take excerpts now, not just from the Minhaj al-Talibin, but from all Shafi'i texts. And even sometimes here or there, from and the different Shafi'i texts. The same with the with Usul al-Fiqh, and the same with Fiqh al-Muqaran. So we didn't study a text complete. You didn't read a text from page 1 till the last of that text. It was just like that. Yeah.
Okay.